All right, let's jump right into this explainer. If you're staring down the barrel of the SAT, the ACT, the GRE, the MCAT, or honestly any of those terrifying alphabet soup exams, you know the panic is real. But today, we're completely flipping the script. We're going to stop looking at these tests as impassable mountains of intelligence and start treating them like what they really are: predictable, highly hackable video games. And just like any game, once you understand the underlying mechanics, you can absolutely speedrun it, exploit its logic, and drastically boost your score with way less friction. So, first things first, let's cross out the generic advice. Get a good night's sleep, eat a healthy breakfast, just relax. Yeah, we've all seen these tips, right? It's exactly the kind of unhelpful fluff you furiously Google at 2 a.m. the night before the test when your motivation is totally shot. We're not doing any of that today. Instead, we're diving into real, actionable, and honestly kind of unconventional strategies that completely bypass the standard advice. So, what if I told you that going faster on a math test actually makes you make fewer mistakes? I know. It sounds totally counterintuitive. You're probably thinking, wait, isn't speed just rushing, and doesn't rushing lead to sloppy errors? Well, not exactly. In the weird world of standardized tests, speed is literally your greatest weapon. It's the ultimate hack. Because if you can blast through the test quickly, you don't just finish it. You literally buy yourself the time to take the entire test a second time. And redoing your work from scratch is infinitely more effective at catching mistakes than just passively staring at your old work. All right, welcome to Level 1 Speed Running, the math section. So how do we actually pull off this speed? Look, it definitely doesn't mean frantically scribbling with your pencil until the lead snaps. Speed in this game just means using radically more efficient techniques to totally bypass the intended time-consuming way of finding the answer. Like when you're faced with a complex algebra problem such as, for all real numbers x, 78 plus 10 over x equals what? If you rely on the math you learned in school, panic probably sets in right about now. Your brain is scrambling to remember rules about common denominators, multiplying fractions, isolating variables. That takes time. And time is the one resource you absolutely cannot afford to waste. Just look at the stark contrast here between the tedious school way and the highly efficient speed way. The school way forces you to cross-multiply, add terms, and painstakingly build this whole equation just to find a matching multiple choice answer. It's a massive grind. But the speed way? You just randomly decide that x equals 1. Boom. Suddenly, the problem is just 78 plus 10 over 1. That gives you a super easy fraction of 87 over 8. Then, you literally just take the number 1, plug it into the multiple choice answers, and see which one also spits out 87 over 8. No complex algebra, no sweating over equations, you literally just hacked the question. And you know what else? Speed also comes from instantly spotting trap answers. Look, test writers know exactly what mistakes a stressed out student is going to make. They know somebody is going to try to add fractions by just adding the tops and multiplying the bottoms, reinventing the laws of math. So they strategically plant that exact wrong answer right there in the options to bait you. If you can learn to spot these common traps, you can instantly cross them out. Even if you have zero clue how to actually solve the problem, crossing out the obvious bait leaves you with a 50-50 guess, which dramatically bumps up your odds in a matter of seconds. Moving right along to Level 2, the lazy shortcut. Okay, so you know you need to get faster, and you need to learn these sweet shortcuts. The old school advice is to lock yourself in a library with a giant textbook and grind practice tests until your eyes bleed. But honestly, if you struggle with focus, that is a one-way ticket to burnout. We're going to look at a method that almost feels like cheating, but is deeply, deeply effective. Keep this in mind. Test writers are not evil geniuses plotting your downfall. They're basically just regular people, maybe working in a government sweatshop, getting paid by the question, trying to efficiently generate wrong answers that you can learn to eliminate. These tests are incredibly formulaic. To beat them, you just have to expose your brain to as many of those underlying patterns as humanly possible. Just think about the math here for a second. It is vastly better to spend 2 totally relaxed hours watching a YouTube tutor breeze through 45 different math problems than it is to spend 1 agonizing hour staring blankly at a single problem in a workbook because your brain completely zoned out. By watching those video walkthroughs, you are lazily, almost passively, absorbing the shortcuts, the tricks, and the patterns, entirely skipping the intense cognitive friction of trying to solve it completely blind. It's maximum exposure for absolute minimum effort. A real game changer. Now let's flip to Level 3, reverse engineering reading comprehension. Look, the math section is one thing, but the reading comprehension section, that often feels completely subjective, right? You read this incredibly dense, boring historical passage, look at the answers, and swear 3 of them could be right depending on how you interpret it. This is exactly where most students bleed points. But check this out. We can fix this instantly by shifting our mindset. Notice the stark difference here. The average student asks, which answer sounds right? But the test writer, they're asking, where is the factual evidence? You have to remember, whoever wrote this question also had to write the official answer key. And for that key, they needed a concrete, unassailable, completely factual explanation for why choice A is 100% wrong and why choice B is 100% right. If an answer relies on your personal opinion or some vague interpretation, trap. The correct answer will absolutely always leave a factual fingerprint right there in the text. Find the evidence, and you found your answer.
Which brings us to level 4, building bulletproof study habits.
Because let's be real, all the flashy shortcuts and mindset hacks in the world aren't going to save you if you don't actually put some time into building a solid foundation. But again, we want to study smart, not hard. First up, avoid analysis paralysis. Stop endlessly researching the perfect study method. Just pick a plan and execute it. Second, build yourself an academic emergency fund. Life happens. You're going to get sick. You're going to get busy. If you aim to stay a couple of days ahead of your schedule, a totally bad day won't completely derail your progress. And finally, always choose breadth over depth. If you're crunched for time, practicing 2 problems across 10 different topics is vastly superior to grinding out 20 problems of the exact same type. It makes sure you've got a solid baseline for the entire game board. And let's be honest with ourselves for a second. We all lie about how much we actually study. You sit at your desk for 3 hours, but come on, 2 of those were spent scrolling on your phone. To fix this, try this accountability hack. Set up your phone to record a time-lapse of yourself studying. It is brilliantly simple. For one, it literally takes your phone out of your hands so you physically can't use it. But more importantly, the idea of watching a sped-up video of yourself later just sitting there staring at a wall doing nothing, it's kind of embarrassing. It introduces this really healthy dose of shame and accountability that practically forces you to stay locked in. Also, just rereading your notes, basically useless. Your brain has to actually work to retrieve the information for it to stick. So try using a tool like Notion to create a toggle list. It is an incredible active recall method. You just type a question, hide the actual answer inside the toggle, and literally force yourself to explain the concept out loud before you click to reveal the truth. It completely transforms your passive, boring notes into a highly active, self-testing engine.
All right, that brings us to the final reality check.
Look, you can have all the absolute best tools. You can know every single math shortcut, and you can totally understand how the test writers think. But human nature is super tricky, and our brains are insanely good at making us feel productive when we are literally doing nothing of value. None of the things on this list count as actual work. Setting up a perfectly timed 25-minute Pomodoro timer? Not studying. Training a complex AI model to quiz you on your textbook? Not studying. Spending 3 hours color-coding a gorgeous, aesthetically pleasing study schedule? Absolutely, positively not studying. These activities are such a dangerous trap. They give your brain this little dopamine hit of productivity without actually moving the needle a single millimeter on your test score. So let this harsh truth really sink in for a minute. Preparing to study is not studying. It is so incredibly tempting to hide behind organization and planning because honestly, it shields us from the super uncomfortable reality of actually wrestling with difficult concepts. We've all been there. But guess what? The test scanner that's grading your exam at the end of the day, it doesn't care how beautifully color-coordinated your calendar was. It literally only cares if you bubbled in the right answer. So the absolute final question you have to ask yourself right now is this. Are you actually playing the game, or are you just staring at the start screen? We've handed you the gamer's playbook. You know exactly how to speedrun the math section by just plugging in numbers. You know how to be efficiently lazy by absorbing those YouTube walkthroughs. You know how to reverse engineer the test writer's factual mindset. And you've got the accountability hacks to keep yourself honest. The mechanics of the game are completely exposed. The strategies are literally right in front of you. But knowing all the cheat codes doesn't beat the final boss. You actually have to pick up the controller. So, what are you waiting for?